Welcome back, and in this tutorial we are going to handle the objects that are going to be created to make the list. We have a list of elements that we could then drag from the left pane to one of those areas, and it should open an iframe that will show the website. So let's go back to the project, and inside the Javascript, we are going to add a new folder called Objects. And inside the objects, we are going to add another JavaScript file called URL. So this is a URL object that we are going to create. Now, before we even continue, let's add the URL to our project. Go to the URL, and we're going to create an self-invoke function. So everything here is going to be private, and here we are going to have the global object, and it will call app URL. So let's first of all create the URL object. To create objects in JavaScript, we're going to make a function called with the name of the object you want. You can pass some arguments over here. Then we are going to use the keyword this and the property name we want. Let's say we're going to pass a name as a parameter and the URL. And the third part is going to be an ID. When we will add this as an element, we will give the element an ID. Let's create a JavaScript file, and we will call it utilities. And over here, we're also going to put some functions that we're going to use throughout the application. For instance, if we want to hide or show an element, just as we did here, we could use this function so we will pass an element, and then we will remove if the display none, or we could put display block, and we could have another hide element function that will do none. And then first of all, we need to add the utilities to our project, and we will add it. Now here the order is quite important, because if I'm going to use some asset that is not loaded yet, it will give us an error. So we're going to put it on top in this case. Come here, instead of doing this, we're going to use the app. The app utilities is the global, so we need to put these functions into the global show element. Let's copy this, hide element, utilities, hide. Show element. So now it looks a little bit better, and let's copy this as well to here, and this one. This. Just verify that everything still works. Seems to work. This is why we have utilities. So if we have a function that we're going to use multiple times, then it's better to use it from one place, because if we will eventually need to put here a block, for instance, so instead of doing it multiple times, we will do it only once. We also want, let's go back to our case, which is the ID. I want the utility function to create an ID for me. So let's generate random ID. It is going to be a function. Now the function is going to look like something like this. We're going to make a random number that is going to look like this. This is a pattern. We're going to choose a pattern of 3, 4, 3 seems legit, and we're going to, let's use 1. Now we will use a function called replace. Now replace will get two parameters. The first one is the character you want to replace. Now I want to replace all the x's into random numbers. That's why I've made this template. So in regular expression we could use something like this. And the G means that it's going iteratively past one after the other. The second parameter is going to be a function, and the function is the replace function, what you want to replace this character for. So let's return math random times 9. So it's going to give me a random number from 0 to 1, but it's going to be a fractional number. So I'm going to multiply it by 9, and then I want to get rid of the fraction, so I'm going to make a bitwise OR with 0. Let's say I have this kind of number. It's going to get rid of this part. It's going to show me only 5. And so this is what I'm going to do. And toString. That's it. This is basically going to bring back several, you know what, let's just so you see, I'm going to put an A over here, and it will skip the A, so it will give me number, random number, A, random number, random number. This is what it's going to do. So add this functionality, and now we will copy this line and go back to the URL, and we're going to use this generate random number. Now let's add to the app URL some function, create URL, so let's create this function. And what the create URL is going to do for now is going to get a name and a URL. It's going to create, it's going to bring back a new URL with the name and the URL. Why have I done a function that creates for me the URL and not just copy this line here? Well, the reason is because you never know what you're going to also need. Maybe I'm going to need map or URL dictionary, and maybe I'm going to need to also do something like this, and I'll need to push this URL into maybe not dictionary but URL list. Maybe perhaps I'll have a URL list that I want to push also. So I have a function that I could do all those stuff for me in one place. That's why I'm going to separate usually the function that creates the URL from the API itself, so I can control it better. So before we're going to check it, I'm just going to return the URL, and now we can check it. We'll go to app, URL, create URL for me, 2 parameters, URL, the second one is going to be a URL, let's say something like this, and it's going to be a URL object. So we created a URL. Let's see if we have a value. Yes, we have a URL object in a URL type, and it has no ID for now, name and URL. So let's check why we don't have any ID. We can just breakpoint this area and to see what went wrong. Have the utilities generate. So let's enter this function. We have a random number. Oh, again. So what went wrong here is that we created the random number, but we haven't returned any value. So let's return the random number. So F5 to refresh, and we should now I have an ID. And the pattern is the same, only the numbers are different. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day and see you in the next one.